Edition of the Breakfast Show, and as promised earlier today, very interesting discussion in store for you, the pharaonic calendar. Of course, New Year's is just around the corner, and Christmas, and we have a lot more insight on the ancient Egyptians and their calculations, their pharaonic calendar, with our guest. We're very delighted to be joined this morning in the studio by Dr. Bassam, Shammaa, prominent author in Egyptology. A very good morning to you, Doctor.
Good morning to you, my dear.
Good morning, Dr. Shammaa. And let us first talk about the pharaonic calendar. When did it exist, and how did things work with the pharaonic calendar?
This is a civilization. It wouldn't reach what it reached without a calendar. Let's put it as a base, without knowing the time, without knowing the seasons, without knowing when is when and what's going to happen, and the events comes from the movement of planets, the movements of the sun. Of course, this is a very solar civilization. This is a very lunar civilization as well. So they started to do the study. It all started before the ancient Egyptians, before the dynastic era, if you like, before 3200 BC, before the first dynasty or dynasty, before Nile and before Mina and before the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. It all started in the most amazing place. And you will be, and our viewers will be, that's a surprised to know where it started. It started in a place which geographically didn't have a name until the 1970s, the 1970s AD. It didn't have a name. That was not on our geographic or the world geographic map. The place is called Nabta Playa. Yes, in your Egypt there is a place called Nabta Playa, and Nabta Playa is 100 kilometers west of Abu Simbel, in the beautiful Nubia. And to cut the long story short, those guys are going back on the main road from Uwainet back to the River Nile Valley, and they stopped by their cars. They went down. They saw a little bit of a place, desert, arid, nothing is happening in the desert. And then all of a sudden, they get encountered by some blocks of stones. They looked at it and they thought it was a circle. Blocks of stones forming a circle. And this circle is 4 meters in diameter. So they thought, well, this is interesting. And then they started to recognize that there are stones which are bigger than others. And when they studied those bigger stones, we are talking a height of that, they found that they would be parallel to each other, and they called them gates, right? They are that high, but they called them gates. And they started to draw lines between a gate and a gate. And they found out that there will be true south and north, and this is a civilization with no language. This is a civilization we're talking, this is a culture, there's a group of people who gathered in Nubia, Egyptian Nubians or Nubian Egyptians, and they were inventing the first sundial ever in the world's history. We are talking thousands and thousands of years before anything, before the pyramids, before the obelisks, before mummification, before hieroglyphs, before before astronomy, astrology, you name it. And they found that there are 2 other gates are forming a direction towards a spot in heavens where indeed every year the sun will shine. And when the sun will shine in this particular moment of that sundial direction, it will give you the first day of summer. So, and what's important about that? Why this culture, why these genius people who we don't know their names, we don't know their culture name, we don't know we don't know anything about them, because there is nothing left from them to tell us anything. They were genius enough to figure out, due to the movement of stars that they studied in heavens, that this sun is going to rise in this particular day to form the first day of summer. What is that? Why is that important to them? Because that's also the first day of the rainy season. The rainy season. And rain means water, and water means life. So the water will come down, will form a lake, and will fill the lake with water. So they can irrigate, they can drink, they can keep the water for the non-rainy season. They will have savanna, green grass and green reeds. That will bring animals to come and drink and eat. It will bring gazelles, it will bring giraffes, it will bring also goats, it will bring all sorts of beautiful things like that. So you can hunt, and you can eat, and you can give offerings to the deities, and you can form a culture, you can form a cult. So they started digging in the place, Nabta Playa, 100 kilometers west of Abu Simbel. When they dug, they found pottery, which means a very high civilized place, because pottery is civilization. They found seeds, they found vegetables, they found fruits. This is agriculture. This is agriculture before agriculture. This is agriculture away from the River Nile.
So, Doctor, what happened after? Did the pharaohs, the ancient Egyptians, then pick up on that and develop their pharaonic calendar?
Precisely.
Because
well
the
said.
pharaonic calendar is really very crucial. It determined everything: the Nile, the flooding, when they could move around, when they could celebrate. I mean, it was also related to festivities, for example, like the New Year. Did they celebrate, for example, the New Year, the beginning of the New Year?
This is the base, as you said. This is a very important spot. And this is once again proves what we've been saying for years. The ancient Egyptians did not spawn out of nowhere, building pyramids and having movement of planets and knowing when the season is coming and when the flood. This is not happening like if I told you tomorrow, give me a Ferrari car. You're going to tell me, of course not, this is impossible. But if I give you 10 years to give me a Ferrari car, that might be possible. 20 years, yes. So the same thing like that, or no, trial and error. This is history. History is trial and error until you reach what you want to reach. Yes, that was, from my personal modest point of view, that was the base of what the ancient Egyptians knew afterwards, because you have to also realize that this is a civilization that dealt with that, dealt with an amazing study of the sky before the ancient Egyptians and away from the River Nile. Which means that if you did not study the rain, you're going to die. Because the River Nile can be low, can be high, can be flooded, can be non-flooded. Sometimes the River Nile does not flood, and that happened in ancient Egypt, and it led to problems in ancient Egypt. We are in Aswan, we have a beautiful island called Suhail Island. On top of this island, there is a hill, and on top of this hill, there is the Stela of Famine. And the Stela of Famine is telling us about how those 7 years that the Egyptians went through because the River Nile didn't. And when the River Nile did not flood, who to blame? In ancient Egypt, who to blame if the River Nile didn't come? The king. Ancient Egyptians blame the king. You are not good. The river deities are not happy with you. More offerings. More offerings, and of course the priests will be warming their palms. Yes. So this is exactly a typical of ancient Egypt. But going back to
modern Egypt, but
and the world,
yeah.
and the world. That's why we always say, read your history so that you do not repeat. There is a guy called Santana I like. He said a word. If this word is placed like in every president and king and I don't know sultan and governor house, we will be the perfect world. He says, those who do not read their past will be condemned by repeating it.
True.
Think about that sentence, everybody.
But it always happened.
It always happens.
But how was it discovered in modern ages? I mean, the calendar, and what is the difference between the pharaoh's calendar and our calendar?
Well, the difference is no huge deal. How did they study how did they invent this idea of the calendar? Of course, need is the mother of all inventions. You need to know when is the flooding coming. That is the main point of ancient Egypt. I need to know when this huge, catastrophic, if not controlled, event that happens each and every year. I want to know when it's going to happen, and if I knew when it's going to happen, then I'm going to avoid what's going to do to me, or I'm going to decide my seasons upon that event. So they studied the movement of the stars. That was their TV after sunset. After sunset, there was no TV in ancient Egypt. After sunset, heavens was the TV. So everybody was watching what's going on. It's a huge movement out there. We are not looking today. Today we are busy going to the mall. But in ancient Egypt, people were watching, were inspecting. That's why we were the first people to do what we like to call stargazing. In ancient Egypt, that was a job in the temple, to stargaze. Imhotep was called to be one of the stargazers. He is the architect who designed the step pyramid. Anyway, I studied the ancient Egyptian stars, and they found a star that's in the eastern horizon, and this star has got an event that you call nowadays heliacal rising. Heliacal rising, in a very simple sentence, is a star that will appear before sunrise for a moment, and that from there it will start going higher and staying longer until the sun will come, and with its light it demolishes the light of that star, and it will disappear. Still there, but it will disappear because the sunlight is stronger than the starlight.
Right, Doctor, allow me to interrupt you very quickly. Please. For a quick break. We have to take a look at a feature prepared also from the governor of Al-Uqsur, so it's all related, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.